Good morning, my name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the weekly energies with today's Monday's Musings on the 28th of July 2025. I've just spent the last 10 minutes wondering what I needed to do this video. I've placed essential oils on me, I have lit incense, I've lit candles, I've made a cup of tea, I've decided upon the tarot deck that was going to be used, and it feels like over the weekend I've been prepared every way possible into what really is being called out from within us all, what is really needed. And for me personally, it came through the addition of my glasses. It came through the addition of perspective and vision. But what's happening the moment I start to wear my glasses is whether or not I have the light on or off, whether or not I am visible or unseen in my fullest light, there is a reflection that is occurring in my own perception. As you can see, it's either the screen or the camera with the light on. And that feels really poignant. I don't know about you guys, but this weekend I actually turned a year older and stepped into the vibration of the 10, the numerical vibration of the 10 based on my age, but 7 based on the year that we find ourselves in. Which means next year I step in, like the rest of us, into a collective energy of the 10, which is beginnings and endings and shifts and changes, which I've spoke about. But I also then step into the energy of an 8. I've started to feel what that could potentially look like over this weekend, and I know many are feeling the same, being made very aware of shifts that require their attention, shall we say, through the reflection of another's ability to hold space, witness them and show them back to them, and how important that is. Over this weekend I've been really guided to look at they're not even hidden messages, they're not even hidden insights, they're obvious, but my own receptivity of them, particularly in regards to the power of the witness and counsel and holding space and what that means. Holding uncomfortable space and what that means. With the Leo new moon, of course, we were all going to have our hearts opened. And I say, of course, with the natural assumption that we knew this was going to happen. And this week it feels quite important to be mindful of that. Although things may be obvious to some, everything's in the view of our own perspective, right? So we may see something and know that that was bound to happen. It made sense. It made felt sense, physical sense, emotional sense, common sense. But what is common sense? To others, things may come as a shock this week. And acknowledging where you find yourself on the spectrum, on many levels, but where you find yourself on the spectrum is going to help you understand what is not expected of you, although I do hear it is expected, and there's an element there of admitting why we are here, of stepping up, an invitation of owning and leading with what is expected of us, be that in relationships, be that in our work and our professions, be that in our own authenticity and our own growth. However, I personally, everything is a choice, right? This is divine will, this is human will as well, free will, everything is a choice. Whatever end of the spectrum you may find yourself in, either sharing or holding space or receiving, is going to be an insight into the availability of roles that you could step into as we lead into 2026. So the Lion's Gate, the Leo new moon, I say obviously opens our heart. The reason I say that is because of that zodiac in particular being linked to the heart space. However, and that particular portal being linked to that energy. However, we have the choice to relate any energy to heart coherence. That is what we're facing this week. Why is that important? Well, love in itself can assist change, and we're going to become more aware of that as we step into 2026. Whether that's oxytocin, just that hormonal reaction when you're giving birth or you're in a relationship, or post-orgasm, or healing, or exercise and endorphins, all those things that we do to love ourselves and each other and what we're creating. Anything that's a byproduct or a symptom of that in regards to how we feel is going to help things shift more easily, simply by reflecting back our vibration, simply by reflecting back who we've always been. This week it's very, very important to acknowledge the support that you are seeking, not from the support itself, but from the narrative you may be perpetuating. When we're in a relationship and we're not too sure where it's going, a lot of us seek advice from those who may not get on with that person in the relationship, or from those who may not be in a relationship, or from those that have already had trauma in relationships, to almost give ourselves permission to step away from said relationship. And what I'm getting at there is to acknowledge and admit the answers that we already have within us through the essence of the wisdom that we're seeking from others. This weekend has been a difficult weekend. There's been a lot of vulnerable sharing. There's been a lot of pain experienced. There's been a lot of trauma witnessed. And for me, it's been real. It's been life. And it's shown me myself where I may not appreciate my role in reflecting that back, and where I need to step up for myself in order to expand upon that for others. As we go into 2026, particularly from now until the eclipse season, we're going to be reminded of reciprocity, but especially when it comes to love, acceptance, awareness, that the more we are able to receive that in, I wonder how many times I'm going to say the word receive in this video, the more we are able to receive that in, the more we are able to give. Now, that's not to say that you can't love another unless you love yourself. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. That's an individual process, and sometimes we need somebody or something that is more capable of holding space for us so that we can then step into that. We all go to the doctor when we're poorly, whether that's a holistic doctor, whether that's a medicine doctor, whether that's the NHS doctors, whether that's a private doctor. We all recognise if we need support. We all acknowledge our own sphere of understanding and awareness with ourselves. Otherwise, we wouldn't share with each other. And if we didn't share with each other, then we would never grow beyond our own perspective and our own capabilities. So it's all intertwined and all interlinked. So I'm not suggesting that you have to be completely in love with yourself before you can love another, but acknowledging where you are, again, on the spectrum, be that love, be that health, be that spirituality, be that emotional availability, be that physical well-being, acknowledging where you are. I see like the paint scale, acknowledging where you are on that spectrum before you connect to another, so that you're connecting in alignment. The thing that came through this morning, I contemplated whether or not to do a video today, because this weekend, whilst beautiful, whilst real, whilst vulnerable, has expanded me. And there's every month I've been guided to write a question to myself for my own yearly reading, or an affirmation, if you will. Sometimes they're more of an affirmation, but the question to myself for the remaining month of July is heartbreak or heart expansion. This weekend, that's given me an opportunity to feel into the initial heartbreak of some of the things that I've witnessed and held space for and had the honour of hearing or observing, but also acknowledging how that is then a gift to expand in my own heart awareness and my own capabilities. We cannot control what is going on in the world. We cannot fix, we cannot take things away, but what we can do is allow that to open us up. Why would we want to do that? Why would we want to open ourselves up when it's painful, right? It's vulnerable, it's real, it can be really raw. The more open we are, the more, you get it, receptive we are. So acknowledging where we are on the spectrum with that, how open are we? When we're asking for help, what help are we actually asking for based on where we are? If we can acknowledge that, we're more in alignment. So this morning I did contemplate whether or not to do a video because I felt not low, not depressed, not sad as such, but more grounded and rooted and present in my body. My vibration was less, as the world perceives it, light, showy, glimmery, iridescent. It was more physical in the experience. And then I remembered how many poets we have that have written incredible poems about grief. How many singers we have that have used their angst and their anger to portray that, to give others that, not permission, that receptivity, that space. It's one thing to hold space. It's one thing to claim that we witness another. How well can we do that for ourselves? And I started to think about all these quote unquote negative emotions that we feel and the impact that that has on whether or not we share something. And if those emotions were people, how unloved they would feel, how unnecessary, unused, unworthy they would feel. And that big half of ourselves, that big chunk of ourselves that we push to one side in order to be accepted, in order to be top of our game, in order to be professional. And I'm not going to go into this too much. I've written a newsletter about professionalism and what that actually means to the individual. What I'm going to end this on before I look into the energies for the week ahead is the importance of intention, not to get too lost in the reflections that are going on. It's great to see, it's great to share, it's great to acknowledge where we may be similar and to receive that empathy for the gift that it is to expand our own awareness. But it's not about identifying with the situation, it's about witnessing ourselves within it. So intention is, my ears going, intention is really important in that. But the other thing is alignment, to really look at what that means. Alignment, for me personally, as it's so often portrayed, is a little bit like the resetting or placating of the nervous system, where it has to be calm and peaceful, where it has to be polished, where it has to be acceptable. My question this week is, by whose standards? What does that look like, and what does that mean in regards to the version of yourself that you see in the reflection around you? Alignment for me personally, and it is really important that you find your own definition of this throughout your whole life. For me personally, is to be with where I am in honest integrity. Only through that self-agency, that self-governance, can we really understand where we're manifesting from. And that's something that's going to be incredibly important as we go into 2026. But for myself, at least, I know. But as we go into 2026, we're in the year of the 10, right? Yes, of course, it's change. Yes, of course, it's the wheel of fortune. But everything rounds down, everything compresses, everything comes back to the original turning point. It's the 1 and the 0. Okay, so it's the fool and the magician. It's our ability to create with what we're given, to channel in with our emotions and what we're feeling and express them in a way that can create any shifts that we're trying to manifest. In order to do that, what emotions have we not even touched the sides with? What gifts and power have we yet to reclaim purely in the acceptance of what we're feeling? And the judgments we may have on that in regards to how we share this. My heart feels very open, very raw, very sad, very confused, at times very uncertain at times, but it's still my heart. And really this week, looking at any guilt or shame we may have with that, and the impact that that has on how open we can be with ourselves. First and foremost, because that is going to determine what we are able to receive. Doesn't mean that we can't give love. Doesn't mean that we need to, especially as myself included, there are people out there who have been unreceived in their life. That's really important. That's really important that these people get to share. That's really important that those sharings are acknowledged and recognized, received even. However, there's a fine line between independence and codependence. That's not to say we're not all codependent at any given time. We need each other to survive, to grow beyond our own perspectives and our own capabilities and our own understandings. When we do that, our consciousness expands, the consciousness expands. However, are we still remaining who we are in those relationships, whether that's with each other, our job, our families, spirit? Have we acknowledged the value that we bring to that situation? Are we in relationships where that is supported, or in circumstances where the very opposite at times is being reflected back to us? Either way, it's an opportunity to know our worth. It just depends what side of the spectrum or side of the coin or end of the paint scale, if you will, the colour of humanity you find yourself on. And that's our choice. So, energies this week and how to best navigate them. Trust. Someone said to me the other day, because I turned up and did a live on Facebook, oh, you really trust spirit, Kirsty, don't you? The way that you just go with it. The truth of the matter is no, not always. And I've had examples, invitations, where that has been an important lesson. I trust myself. That doesn't mean I know everything, far from it. That doesn't mean I'm happy all the time, far from it. That doesn't mean I am clear on where I'm going, far from it. Or that I am at the peak of my physical health or emotional well-being, far from it. But in every stage, it's been an opportunity to walk towards that in each moment. And I trust my body's ability to do that. I trust myself to do that, whether that's because of everything I've walked through, whether that's because of an inherent knowing. Are they any different, for starters? But this week, really looking at where you may not be 100% in alignment with what you're capable of and your potential because of a lack of trust in yourself. And feeling into that, if you so wish, with support, so that you can reclaim those parts of yourself that for whatever reason have been pushed to one side, because it's that that's going to bring back that level of wisdom from within you. I shared a quote this morning. It was by Lauren Van de Post. I'm going to ad-lib it now, but it was something along the lines of the lower you go, the higher you can reach, pretty much. Now, I don't believe that life has to be full of suffering and misery in order to be happy. I'm not saying that. I think that's a very old sacrificial wound that many are facing, myself included. However, the more in you can come, the more rooted you can be in your situation or your body or your circumstances, and the presence that you can give that, the different answers you're going to be able to get, the more clarity you're going to be able to seek, the higher you're going to be able to reach. We experience all ends of the spectrum, right? Okay. It isn't about what goes up must come down. I feel the temptation for it to be that. I feel the temptation for it to be, well, it's just a side effect. You know, negativity, depression, guilt, that kind of thing. They're just side effects of being high or being open, or they're just, you know, I'm just healing them. It's really important this week to acknowledge the lower vibrations for the frequency that they bring. So now I'm being shown the Wheel of Fortune next year. Obviously the Wheel of Fortune goes up, but it also comes down, but it's not separate in that motion. It's part of the cycle. Recognizing when we feel a need to go within, it isn't always because we're drained or because we've been overstretched or because we're depressed. It is a normal part of the cycle. It is a chance to integrate what has occurred. This weekend were some of the things that I have had the honour of witnessing and sharing in with people. if I was to remain as high as I was on the Friday, those depths of conversation would never have occurred. And I know there is a great school of thought that we can keep things light. I'm not suggesting that things have to be heavy in the old connotation of what heaviness is. I'm not suggesting they have to be, there's a red spider on my wall. I'm not suggesting they have to be hard. What I'm proposing is that they need to be grounded, and sometimes humor, sometimes witnessing to a point of disassociation, sometimes separation, sometimes a lack of presence, sometimes a need to understand or share before hearing isn't enough for the energies that need to come into play to be welcomed enough to be seen. Sometimes darkness alone isn't enough. Sometimes shadow work alone isn't enough. And that's the invitation this week, to really look at where we are on the spectrum. I knew this was 21 minutes in. I knew this was coming this week because I was high on the Friday. Now, that doesn't mean that I knew I was going to be dragged down or drained. I knew it was a normal, natural part of my own cycle to take I'd been given this gift of energy with the Lion's Gate, this excitement, this joy, this livelihood, this creative energy, this extra buzzing energy in my body to shift and move and make myself more open and receptive to then be able to hold space for energies that were lower vibration. The more I sit in that, the more integrated I am in that, then as the wheel turns, I will be able to embrace higher frequencies again, recognizing they are part of a cycle. Seeing them by all means as separate, but acknowledging there will come a time where they are continuously occurring, and that time is next year. And acknowledging where or what you may need to prepare, and reflection of yourself now before that happens. Okay, energies this week and how to best navigate them. I'm going to use the Legacy of the Divine Tarot by Cairo Marchetti. Apologies if I haven't pronounced your name properly. And right on the front of the pack here, we have the Queen of Wands. And this is the energy we're kind of in at the moment with the Lion's Gate and with that Leo new moon. However, I don't know about anyone else, I'm really being made very aware of the next full moon already. So it's going to be quick. It's going to shift. It's not anything that we're unable to be part of, and that really feels important to acknowledge. It's not about what we can cope with. It's what we perceive ourselves to be part of. Okay, so really looking at what we're identifying with, including our own stories in the narrative. So yesterday I could have got, and I did at first, I could have got very caught up with the fact that it was my birthday. And the whole day seemed to be about what was going on for everybody. And I'm human. I have an ego, and yes, of course, I felt that first, and I sat into it, and part of it was true. It was. But the other part of me also acknowledged that maybe, just maybe, that was half the reason I was born. Not to make my life about other people, but to be part of this vulnerable, real sharing of life, and to be that aspect that can support others to do so as well. So this week, really feeling into what we feel we can't cope with as we acknowledge where we may not have seen our role within it. Two of Swords at the bottom of the pack, right? Completely blindfolded here. What I'm going to draw your attention to here is the fact that the veil is violet. Okay, so what in our own vision now needs to be transmuted? This character is wearing a mask. Where have we not seen ourselves fully for who we are? It is from now until the full moon. There's a full moon at the bottom here, and there's a lot of blues and purples on this card. And it's not just the throat chakra, it's our third eye. Also, I'm hearing the word tanzanite. That's the crystal, isn't it? So investing in things that are going to open your third eye in a natural, safe manner. What I'm also seeing is almost an influx in drugs that are going to support that. So one of the things this morning, I thought, what do I need? Do I need to do I need some coffee? Do I need, to do my tuning forks? Recognizing anything that we seek externally is going to open us up. How able we are to receive that, however, depends on us and what we use to do that. So being mindful of the urgency or the laziness of not wanting to, and I feel that in my throat, of not wanting to quite see what is happening and finding a different alternative vision or way of seeing the same thing in a more palatable manner this week. It's that needs to be transmuted. I got, I wouldn't say scolded, but encouraged to realign my energy this morning because my mind went elsewhere when I was doing the daily dose, and it does it a lot. And what I noticed when my mind went elsewhere was by focusing on situations that I compared myself to, I got really caught up in jealousy and envy and self-doubt. And the guidance was to focus on my own directive. And that is the overall emphasis this week. Whatever is occurring, it's an opportunity to bring it back to where your energy is better served. Okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Overall, it felt like I really wanted to rush that at one point, like once that had been acknowledged. Once that had been acknowledged, it's like, oh my God, there's so much energy coming in now. I just want to rush through it. I don't want the inconvenience of having to go through this process, of this emotional process. I just want it over and done with already. Once I acknowledge what it is happening, I want that to be enough for it to move on. And yes, of course, it can be, depending on how much you're willing to acknowledge. There's a real, and I don't want to get too on my own soapbox here because I'm mindful of time, but there's a real fast food, fast spirituality. What was it? My sister called it yesterday. Oh, I can't remember. She had an amazing name for it. Fast track way of living where life itself is an inconvenience. It's like we want all these tick boxes done. We want to take the plant medicine to open our third eye because we don't want to connect to our bodies and go through the process of doing it. We want the certificate in X, Y, and Z so that we can, say that we've done this and get rid of that and move on to the next. And whilst I'm all for expansion, recognizing what it is that's expanding, that's the other side of the Leo moon, right? And the Lion's Gate. Is it our ego? I have nothing against ego, but everything needs to be balanced. Is it just our heart? Just our heart. I had to put that in, right? Is it our heart? Everything needs to be balanced. This week, this is our full body expansion that is going to encourage us to, dare I say it, enjoy the process, because what's the alternative? Fighting ourselves for the rest of our lives with whatever we may be feeling, trying to find a way to fix it, to shift it, to heal it, to get rid of it. Whether that's a course, whether that's a healing, whether that's a reading, whether that's, a crystal or whatever that may be, or feeling what's going on. Enjoying the process. Now, I'm not saying enjoying the circumstances. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is feeling in with awareness what is happening for you and really taking accountability for any learning that is occurring about who you are, because only then will you see your ability to change the circumstances. On the Monday, we have the Eight of Cups. Overall, we have the Nine of Swords. And I'm going to draw your attention to that because at the end of the week, we have the Four of Swords. There's a difference between procrastination and allowing our mind to run away from us and ruminating over things that we cannot shift, to resting and receiving. Overall, we have the Nine of Swords, and it is going to be a week where our mind races ahead, where it can make worst case scenarios. And that's not to say that those scenarios aren't a potential. They are. But how are they affecting the present? What space are they making for any alternative realities to come in? Where are they coming from? What is that little voice in this card? There's no point me holding up to the camera because it will reflect. In this card, there's 3 hands going towards this woman's ear. What is the inner voice that you are listening to? What is its narrative? Does it serve your highest interest this week, your own included? Overall, we have the 8 of Cups, and today this card actually came up, and one of the things that stood out to me was this character is morphing into a merman, but rather than have a fish's tail, he has an octopus. He has octopus legs. That feels really important because an octopus, I think, has 3 brains or 3 hearts. Incredible creature, very intelligent creature, very emotive creature, recognizing the heart's coherence for the wisdom that it brings, being that allows the transformation to occur with ease. Of course, the 8 of Cups is linked to guilt and grief and moving forward from that, but it's not about moving forward from these things, but allowing them to embrace you, allowing them to guide you. It's not about getting rid of your emotions, but allowing them to show you where you are. I would say without the judgment, we're human, right? We're human. You know, I definitely, or did I? I was going to say I preferred feeling light this week. I'm not sure if I did, because for me, the depths are my thing. I know where I am on the spectrum. I appreciate the depths. I appreciate the highs as well, obviously, but I recognize the importance of the depths in order to get to those highs. This week, really looking at what has changed for you, what is being transformed for you in your ability to appreciate your emotions for the mastery that it is. Mastery does not come with control or change. Mastery comes with acceptance and working with part of something, ourselves included. Of course, then on the Tuesday, we have the King of Cups. This card didn't actually want to come out of the pack today. I struggled to get this card out of the pack, and underneath was the 5 of Cups. There's a invitation here to not use our emotions to suppress ourselves, but to embody and protect and inspire our own actions. The King of Cups. Is there anything else to add there? I was sharing with my sister the other day, there's this overwhelming urgency in the world to control anything that is quote unquote feminine. Now, this isn't a gender perspective. This is emotions, intuition, the wild, you know, whether it's the sea and we want to fish it, whether it's the earth and we want to drill from her womb, whether it's youth and we want to drink from it forever, whether it's wisdom that we're constantly seeking externally, whether it's our emotions that we're trying to understand. There's this separation, this disconnection, this lack of embodiment when it comes to the feminine. The King of Cups here is showing that it's not about observing or witnessing, but holding space for that energy, for the honor that it is on the Tuesday. So it's not about getting rid of your emotions. It's not about forcing clarity, which I can feel myself trying to do. It's more about expanding our own energy so we can receive it in the first place. And I feel that in my throat. I feel that in my heart. And there's a great emotional depth available on the Tuesday that is going to open the third eye. I want to say the throat chakra. I keep wanting to say the throat chakra, but it's not. It's the third eye. For the communication that it is, our perception is the very language of our experiences. On the Wednesday, we have the Ace of Wands. Now, I chuckle because I just literally heard myself say that and thought, whoa, that's pretty impressive, girl. And that's as we're moving on collectively to the Ace of Wands on the Wednesday, which is surrounded by dragons. And there's this staff here of acknowledging all the power, all the shape, all the fire, all the connections that are available when we do actually acknowledge how impressive we are, when we do allow ourselves as well to receive recognition from ourselves, when we allow that spark of inspiration to be inspired. On the Thursday, we then have the Empress. And here, even though this card is full of potential, there's a tiredness. There's a feeling of being pregnant for so very long. There's a feeling of watching everything else transform around the Empress, which is encouraging an insight. I can see the Jaguar here, which is encouraging an insight into the wisdom of the Jaguar, into the wisdom of endings, into the wisdom of change. The Empress in the Tarot is continuously pregnant. She is continuously creating. It never stops. There's a very fine line between constructive and conveyor belt this week. And that's the difference. You're going to notice the difference between the 9 and the 4 of Swords. There's a difference between going over and over and over things, or pausing and letting go of that we are not ready yet to receive. Acknowledging that in itself is an important step of creation. Acknowledging those moments of pause and reflection and integration are the other side of the Wheel of Fortune. It's not always about action. You know, so for example, on the Wednesday with the Ace of Wands, when we allow that inspiration of ourselves to come through, giving ourselves that moment to embody it. Because then when we do act, when we do create, we do so from a more alive, alight space. Whether we're happy or sad, whether things are negative or positive, whatever separation you want to see that as, when we're more aligned to what we're actually feeling and allow that to inspire us without the judgment of how something should be, then that creative process, yes, of course, it's continual. Of course, we will see it around us, but we will have more peace with the fact that we are part of it, not separate. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. On the Friday, we have the 3 of Cups. I'm pausing with that because on the Friday, I personally have a funeral to attend to, and you wouldn't normally expect to see celebrations at a funeral. Or I say you wouldn't, we kind of do. And I'm reminded of this because the character on here is a gypsy, and I'm reminded of my own ancestral roots there, how we all celebrate life and how we do so differently. Everybody does so differently, but acknowledging with every ending, there is always something to celebrate. It's that brings forth and creates something different. We can get very caught up in the things that we have lost this week, particularly from the beginning of the week. However, the invitation, the suggestion here is also to reflect on what we have gained, to restore that balance. At the very center of, I was going to say the center of the medicine wheel, but at the very center of the Wheel of Fortune, there's balance, right? There's the cross. Now that cross can mean anything. That cross can be your hope, your faith, as in the Christian faith or the Catholic faith. That cross can be the Southern Cross of the Mayan people, you know, the reflection of the stars in the sky and heaven to earth. That cross can be a balance of elements. That cross can be solid structures in your life that provide that balance, but ultimately there's always a balance. And this week, appreciating again where we are on the spectrum for the balance that brings. It's that that's going to create something different on the Friday. On the Saturday, we then have the 2 of Wands. What once inspired us on the Wednesday, it's not that it's split open. It's not that it's torn into 2. It's not that it's separate from what we're trying to create. It's just all of a sudden it is seen as a step towards what we offer and what we are part of. And when we do that, when we acknowledge who we are in the process of things, which we can only do by experiencing the process of things, when we acknowledge who we are in the process of things, then anything that reflects back to us will help us find the key that we need to really tap into any gifts that we have yet to open. And that's what we're going to face as we go into 2026. One of the things for my own yearly reading, which obviously I did yesterday, the card that kept coming up that I wanted to actually embrace was the Queen of Pentacles. And in this deck in particular, the Queen of Pentacles, even though she has the pentacle on her heart, she has a light in her third eye. And what kept coming through was the ability to ground our perception. This week, we are going to have a spark of what is expected of us as we go into 2026. Why is that important? Because again, it is about recognizing our place in something and where we may need to fine tune that in the reflections of others around us or circumstances around us. Is it breaking us? Is it separating us? Is it uniting us? Is it leaving us codependent, independent, hyper independent? Is it opening us up to our greatest gifts that have yet to be untapped, because they are going to be essential as we move into 2026? The magician that doesn't know he's a magician is just a fool with a wand, right? And there we go again with my second inspirational quote. Then on the Sunday, we have the Four of Swords. And that feels quite important to talk about the inspirational quote, because when we first talked about it on the Wednesday, it helps us to look at how we create. And when I talked about it for the Saturday in a more reflective energy, a more response-able energy to our external environment, there's an opportunity here to really embrace the trust that comes from being present, rested, and still with where we are. It doesn't mean that we have to sit cross-legged or meditate. I'm not saying that's not a good idea if you have time. It's like the Buddha quote, isn't it? Those that don't have time to meditate should do it for more extensive periods. Again, ad lib. But acknowledge what brings you peace, and not only do a bit more of that, but become a bit more of that. One of the things I noticed this weekend after the difficult time was I started to push away everything that I not only love, but that I had provided over the weekend. Acknowledging where you may be doing that, so you are then drained, so that old narratives can continue to play out their process. It's not about getting rid of them, but having awareness of them. And that awareness starts to shift and change it anyway. Okay, underneath it all, there is the proposal that in acknowledging what you are pushing away and receiving it back, you truly acknowledge who you are and what it is that you offer. Okay, so looking at anything that you have resistance to this week for the part of you that you have yet to embrace. So 42 minutes overall. We have one major arcana this week, and it is the Empress. Get out and ground. Just ground in what brings you beauty, ground in what brings you life, ground in what brings you joy back to your heart. And if you find yourself resisting that, having compassion for the fact that you may not feel ready to stop creating the cycles that you long to leave or stop. And that awareness in itself, with compassion, without the judgment and the forcing. Remember, this new moon in Leo is not about force but frequency. Without the forcing, we'll start to move things anyway. We can only ever see the beauty of ourselves, right, when we are able to see it in those around us. So really looking at what situations you're putting yourself in and why you may be doing that. And I don't mean the situations that there are no control over. I'm not going to get into the whole whether there's control or not, because I appreciate that I don't know what everybody is going through. And I don't want to shrug off some incredibly serious situations that are out there. However, what I would suggest is those that you do have some say in, the news, people that we follow on social media, that urge that we ignore, go for a walk, oh, I'll do that later. All those times where we let the mind question what it is we need, feeling into that and the impact that that has on our ability to be open to more beauty in our life. And that then taking responsibility for, because we do have a choice with that. That's the overall energy this week. Recognizing yourself as the creator of your creations and how important you are in that, whether that's world peace or your family, and is there a difference, right? For some families in particular, recognizing they're one and the same. So if you really, really, really want to create what it is you want to create, taking responsibility for where you may not be embodying that or receiving that yourself. We then have 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. We then have 2 sword cards. It feels like a decision. It feels related to decisions also. The 9 of Swords and the 4 of Swords. If there comes a time where your mind has gone over into a mental loop, pause. Be with the emotions that are trying to rise, that the mind is trying to protect you from, not in a negative way, but that's the mind's role, that's the mind's job, to keep you quote unquote safe based on the mind's perception of that. Pause and be with whatever is occurring before making any decisions this week. There's then 2 wand cards, and that there feels like a relief in that. A relief in that, and a space that then opens as we lead into the peak of the Lion's Gate on the 8/8 portal, a space that then opens for numerous, it's not downloads, numerous, it's like a nurturing from the soul. Obviously, it doesn't have to be just on the 8th of the 8th, you know, taking that moment to pause when the mind goes into a loop, to bring it back to something you can focus on, whether that's going outside, whether that's your family, whether that's your breath, your body, something that you can focus on, then allows you to nurture not only your own soul, but whatever it is you're creating. Because we then have the Ace and 2 of Wands, right? Recognizing that you are spirit also, that you are part of the team that you work with, that you are part of the family that you care for, that you are part of the vision you're trying to create, that you're part of what's being reflected back to you, that you are part of this earth, that you are part of your emotional awareness and whatever anyone else is going through, but also acknowledging that doesn't mean to identify with it, with the external, but to identify with what is going on for you as part of that. We have the dragon energy there, and that, you know, next year as we step into 2026, yes, it's the year of the horse, but there's a lot of myths that suggest horses are reincarnations of dragons. So recognizing herd mentality, but acknowledging your place within that herd as well, by embracing the emotions for the power that they can bring. They're a gift to be unlocked for many into 2026, to create with them. They're a language to be remembered and spoken of. We then, of course, have 3 cup cards, and yeah, the creation is going to come from our emotions. When we have the 3, we have that birth type energy. Excuse me. We have the 8 of Cups, the 3 of Cups, and the King of Cups. It's not about moving through grief or loss or emotions that have helped us to transform, but celebrating the fact that that is what they've done. And that's how we embody the King of Cups in our actions as a result. Or, sorry, no, yeah, I was very flippant with that last bit. Closure is not going to come by forcing or because it's convenient. Wait, yeah? Wait for that guidance. It's not in our actions as a result. It's about recognizing that when we celebrate the transformations that have occurred through grief or loss or anything that has initiated us, that is the action in itself. Okay. 1 card. 48. Cool. 1 card. That's really strange because just now I'm sure I was on 50 odd minutes for this reading. Taking a second look. Acknowledging the time that it takes is the time that it takes. Again, it's not about force but frequency. 1 card for this week. Okay, we're back to the 2 of Swords. You saw me shuffle those, and to the left we have the Hermit. There's a lot underneath that I could, get lost in. I mean, there's a wand card under there, there's sword cards under there. Try not to get too involved in what's underneath it all this week, because you're diluting the essence of it. By understanding mentally alone, you're not then embracing the emotional side, and both are needed. There is a lot underneath it, but the guidance here is to return to what it was always about. That transformation comes in the vision that we have, how we communicate that, and the mask that we are willing to take off in order to see ourselves truly in any situation. Supported by the Hermit, this card, this beautiful card. Underneath it there is heartbreak. Of course there's heartbreak, but it's going back to that initial invitation, heartbreak or heart expansion. That's not downplaying what people are going through, but that's using the pain as a portal. That feels really flippant, so that's honoring your process. To honor your process, it's not about downplaying it, it's not about separating yourself from it, it's not about understanding it, but it is about feeling it. And when we feel heartbreak, it becomes heart expansion, but it's the feeling of it. That's what gives us the light within. So I am going to show you this card because in the Hermit, he has that crystal. Again, we're back to that crystal. So invest in some tanzanite or invest in a energy that is going to help you open your own vision about the light that is within you, because it's that for us all collectively this week that needs transmuting. Take care. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next Monday.